All right, well, let's move on. We'll stop talking about regular NBA and we'll talk NBA fantasy. And this is going to be our big segment for the podcast today because there's been a lot of young players in particular putting their hand up as hot pickups recently. We're going to go through a few different names here. I'll rattle through them and then we're going to go through them one at a time just to sort of highlight what we think they're going to be like for the rest of the season. And then after that, we're going to rank them in terms of who's the priority pickup. If you had to pick up one and you only had one sort of spot to drop to pick them up, who should you pick up first? So these are the hot players that we've identified. There's 9 really that I think have put their hand up since the All-Star break. And that is Kevin Porter Jr., Moses Brown, Danilo Gallinari, Tomas Satoransky, Kelly Olynyk, my boy Aleksej Pokusevski, Immanuel Quickley, KJ Martin Jr., and Robert Williams, the Time Lord. Just before we get diving into those sort of names, who stands out to you there, Cal?
I actually I was really jealous because I'm pretty sure you picked him up as well in our tournament. Yeah. You did, in fact, because I went to go get him and you already swiped him from me. But Kevin Porter Jr. of the Houston Rockets is yelling at me. He's been playing it very well, averaging a lot of assists as well, which is, as you know, hard to come by. In the past 7 days, it's 18 points, 8.3 assists, and then the 1.5 steals and 1.3 blocks. Yeah. So he's doing a bit of everything for you. His percentages, field goals only being 42%, but he's put up a lot of shots, like 17 attempts a game. It, to me, is promising just to know that the coach is putting trust into him and telling him he's got the green light. And when a player has the green light, you know he's going to put up stats. He might have some lows, some bad games, but in a week-to-week kind of comp, I'm feeling pretty confident. I would love to have him on my team. So he's probably my number one of all of those guys you mentioned.
Yeah, like I think he's the clear standout, and his roster percentage reflects that. He's probably likely owned in your league. He's owned in 73% of leagues, and I'm assuming that if you're listening to this podcast, you're switched on, you sort of know what you're doing. But if he is not, 100% go out and grab this man because he is going to be someone who could win you your league. Like you said, 8.3 assists in his 4 games since he's been called up from the G League. The only sort of asterisk there that I will say is that has been without players like John Wall. You know, Eric Gordon has been in and out of the roster. Oladipo's sort of there a little bit. So they're missing a lot of players, the Houston Rockets. Now, they might trade a lot of players too. I think this team is not going anywhere soon. They're going to hit the rebuild very, very quickly. So he might still continue to feature heavily, but this may be a little bit higher than what we see him, but he's probably, I would say, a top 100 player from here on out pretty comfortably.
Yeah, definitely.
He's going to get you those assists, going to get you those steals. He's averaging 1.3 blocks. That's pretty crazy from a sort of guard sort of player. So yeah, I would agree to reveal our early sort of ranking order later. Yeah, he's definitely my number one. If he is available, don't hesitate. Pause this podcast. Come back to later, but go add Kevin Porter Jr. and then come back and listen to the rest. I'll give a shout out to just a guy who we highlighted and he's got a special place next to my heart, and that is Aleksej Pokusevski, someone who we've been hot on from the beginning and highlighted him as someone who's got potential. He had a breakout game a couple of games ago, scoring 23 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal and a block, 5 threes, hit all his free throws, 53% from the line. It was a monster game. Unfortunately, today he's backed it up with a 4-point performance and 8 rebounds. Still played the 29 minutes, but I think in a 12-team standard category league, he's still probably not worth rostering because similar to Kevin Porter Jr., there are a lot of outs with this team at the moment. You've got Darius Bazley out. Al Horford's missed a few games. I'm pretty sure Shea was out for a little bit and he's back now. I think Lou Dort, he's been missing some time as well. He's been
out as well, yeah.
Yeah, there's a few guys missing. So I can see him taking a hit and he's going to be inconsistent, really. So probably not rosterable in 12-team leagues. Maybe in 14-team leagues you stick with him and the potential is there. But I probably wouldn't hang on to him in 12-team leagues. What are your thoughts on our boy Poku?
I will say I'm not as high as you are. I know you're a big fan.
Yeah, probably not for this year. I'm more big on his potential in the future. Not for this year.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, he had that beautiful, like everyone's talking about it, that 23-point game he put up.
Yeah,
The amazing footwork.
yeah.
A guy who's 7 foot moving like that. But I mean, like he's 190 pounds. He needs to get into the gym
Oh,
to really,
yeah.
put up some big numbers. But I can see the potential is there. If he's a stash in your league, go for it.
He's been playing like small forward recently, and that's not really that's not going to be his best position. I think he's going to be a power forward or like a point center almost when he fills out, and that's when you're really going to see the potential of Poku come to life. On this Thunder team, he's got the highest potential out of any player. Like I think his potential is higher than
Shea.
Higher than Shea. His ceiling is just ridiculous. Like he could be the next if everything goes right, and this is what I'm saying. Like he could be the next. Kristaps Porzingis, but with a bit of a, Jokic game to him with his passing ability and ball handling. So he's got that kind of potential, I believe. Like I said, probably not this year. He's way too skinny, way too weak. But just definitely a name to keep an eye on. And if you're in Dynasty, I would be just hanging on to him, especially unless you're sort of in that win now mode. If you can afford to hold a rookie, I would definitely be holding on to Poku. All right, let's run through these other guys. The next guy who, again, we'll stick in OKC. I want to get your thoughts on Moses Brown, who obviously had a huge game today. I'll let everyone know that I picked him up as a result of this game. But what are your thoughts on Moses Brown, Cal?
You got a lot of blocks, 5 blocks, which is great for fantasy. 20 and 16 as well. Big. So pretty crazy numbers. I mean, that's numbers you want from like, second round kind of draft pick from a big man. So the minutes are a question mark, as we touched on. I'm a little bit worried because I'm an Al Horford owner. And I'm a little bit worried that if hypothetically they just do push for the full, if they can't move him, I don't know. There is a buyout candidacy. There's still another year in his contract. So I think it's a little bit unlikely, but it's making me a little bit worried because I don't want Al Horford to lose minutes. So that is a negative if you are an owner, but Moses Brown, he's definitely worth picking up after that performance, and he should definitely get a bit of a minutes kind of lift moving forward.
Yeah, I love the look of this guy. I watched most of the game today. He's a big fucking dude. Like this guy, he's a big lanky dude. Like he gets up and down the court though. He's fast. He's mobile. He's lanky. This guy reminds me, like statistically, he reminds.
Jordan, maybe.
Maybe like a skinny DeAndre Jordan, almost like a bit more mobile Rudy Gobert, almost. Probably not quite as strong as Rudy Gobert, but that will come with his when he gets a bit more seasoning into him. Statistically, though, he reminds me of sort of like a Hassan Whiteside back in the day when he broke out for the Heat. He had that breakout second half of the season. I can see if all the sort of chips align, the same sort of thing happening with Moses here. Obviously, you've got a few more roadblocks in terms of what they do with their lineup. The Thunder suddenly like weirdly stacked in their front court. You've got Al Horford, you've got Baisley, you've got Isaiah Roby, you've got Moses, you've got Pokusevski. There's 5 guys that all need minutes. So, it won't be this good. But I think, if you need field goal percentage, if you need rebounds, blocks, this guy's going to be a great ad. So I can see a scenario, however, that, like you said, I've sort of been preaching it this whole season. I think Al Horford's been a sell high for a long time because I don't think they're going to feature him very heavily down the stretch. And they're obviously trying to trade him. Whether or not they are able to, different question. But he's going to rest a lot of games. He's going to sit a lot of games. There might be some fake injuries coming up. And I just see a path for Moses to get minutes. He played alongside Isaiah Roby today. They played them together in the starting lineup. And Pokusevski played at small forward. So that's a way that they're going to be able to get players in there. Maybe Baisley can play a bit of small forward minutes. They don't really care about winning. So they just want to get these players on the court. So I would just grab him now, ask questions later, and see how you go.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with you 100%. It's sad as an Al Horford owner. I'll have to shoot some trades off to some people.
Quickly before this podcast airs. The other thing I will say is I did drop James Wiseman for Moses, so I armed and ahed about it for a little while. I've been holding on to James Wiseman for the entire season, but just came down to the point where I just don't think Wiseman's upside is the same as Moses, and I can see a clearer path to minutes for Moses than I can for Wiseman. So, not saying you should go and drop Wiseman in your league. He might still have high potential, but for me, I just think he hasn't shown it yet, and I can't really see it happening too soon for the Warriors, who are trying to make the playoffs. Let's move on to the next guy. Let's talk about an older player now, Danilo Gallinari. I'm going to throw it over to you, Cal, here first. I know we haven't been the biggest Gallinari fans on this podcast, and for the most of the season, but you can't deny he's been putting up points. What are your thoughts on Gallo at the moment?
Well, the one knock against him was because I thought he was, going to be coming off the bench and kind of be in a more limited minutes role. But those Atlanta Hawks have been on a bit of a tear recently. They've won 6 in a row after today. And that's really been a big reason for Danilo Gallinari to have a bit of a breakout at this point for the Atlanta Hawks, because he's obviously affecting winning. So obviously the coach will in turn keep up these minutes. So if he's on your waiver wire, he's definitely worth adding, because I think this looks like it will be maintained. And he's going back to his old ways. He'll give you good points. He'll give you very efficient free throws. He's averaging 3.5 a game over the past couple of weeks, shooting 100%. That's what he does. And then he gets the old counting stats on blocks and steals. Not a whole lot, but he's really just there for the points and the free throws, and he is elite in those two categories. So I have been on record. I don't really like Gallo as a fantasy player. I was down on him at the start of the season, and that was all right. But it looks like, there's some rumblings from the Hawks. John Collins might be on the move. Like, I don't know, they're not too keen on him. And apparently the coach really likes Gallinari. He likes to play in big minutes recently, and he's been putting up numbers, scoring over 20 points 4 out of the last 5 games, multiple threes in all of those games, 3 or more in every single one. Hasn't missed a free throw in that stretch. So elite in those 3 categories. Low turnovers if you care about that. Don't go expecting any assists, steals, or blocks. That's just not going to happen. But I think he's definitely should be rostered. He's rostered in 69% of leagues, so he is on the higher compared to all these other players. But if you do see him on your waiver, I would pick him up if you're looking for those stats, because he's definitely going to help you there. Let's move on to another older guy, point guard this time, Tomas Satoransky. What are your thoughts on Tomas? Well, he got the start today, played a good game. He can get assists, and I feel like that's why you get him. You get him because he can get assists, and he doesn't really hurt you too much in other areas. He'll get a bit of points, bit of rebounds because he's a tall guard. I guess for what you're getting, he does get a bit of turnovers, but obviously a lot of punt turnover builds are out there. I think it could be a bit of a short-term ad, is my opinion.
You think? Okay. See, I'm a bit on the fence here. Now, they've made the switch the last 2 games for Kobe White out for Satoransky, and I think this might be a permanent one. We talked a little bit before on our trade rumor podcast that the Bulls don't seem to really think that Kobe White is like their point guard of the future. They think of him more of a 6-man sort of role. So this might be the move they make. The only thing that might sort of come into this, I think, if they trade for another point guard, which is a possibility. So we'll do our rankings a bit later on. He's a bit further down my list, but he's going to be an efficient scorer. 50% both his last 2 games, good free throw percentage. He's going to get steals, assists at a good rate. 7 in the last 2 games since he's been starting. He played 30 minutes today compared to Kobe White, who played fewer minutes. So I think definitely, if you need those point guard stats, he's someone you should scoop up immediately. And he is only rostered in 15% of leagues, which is crazy low, the lowest of all of these players, which really surprised me, to be honest. So he will probably be available in your league. So I would quickly go and scoop him up if you need some of those assist steals, good percentages. Points are not going to be there in high volume, but he's going to fill up the stat sheet in other ways as well. So I'm a big fan of Tomas Satoransky, and I think he will stick moving forward.
I'll say one quick fantasy, comparison for him would be to some degree Lonzo Ball, but without the 3-pointers.
Yeah.
So he
Probably
puts up
fewer
kind of like,
three-pointers.
the 12, 5, and 5
Yep.
with like a steal a game. Well, which is pretty much what Lonzo puts up. It's just that the threes aren't quite there. So, but there is still value in him.
I will say he'll be much more efficient than Lonzo as well, though.
That's true.
His field goal percentage and free throw percentage will be much more efficient, and probably not quite the blocks that Lonzo gets. Lonzo does get a few for a guard. But yeah, that's a good comparison in terms of like that bigger sort of player. Get your rebounds, get your steals and assists, low scoring. Let's move on to the next guy. We're talking Kelly Olynyk from the Miami Heat. He's been on a tear recently. Do you want to guess what Kelly Olynyk, without looking, has been ranked in the last 2 weeks?
I've already looked it up. I think is it fourth?
Okay.
Is it fourth?
Not quite sixth over the last couple of weeks. Absolutely crazy. This guy is on fire. It's a 5-game sample size, but this dude, he's putting up numbers. What are your thoughts on Kelly?
He's doing it all. He's getting 2 steals a game, 1.2 blocks, low turnovers, great percentages. There's no fault to him over the past 5 games.
No fault in his statistical categories. So he's been putting up numbers. Obviously, he's been starting all season, but the last sort of 5 games, it's just been absolutely on fire, sort of coinciding with that All-Star break. So maybe he's invigorated, ready to go. He had a couple of games where he was playing without Bam Adebayo, but today's game, Bam was back, still put up this gem of a line, 17, 8, 4, 3 steals, 2 blocks, no turnovers, hit a 3, very efficient from the field goals. So, I reckon you add him and see how it goes. He's probably lower down the list for me. What are your thoughts in terms of compared to these other guys?
I reckon he's high on the list for me. I put the waiver through to try and add him, but unfortunately I didn't get my hands on him, which I was a bit sad about because he's a good fit for my team. With what he's putting up, he doesn't hurt anyone's team as well. So he's definitely worth adding. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I had a squeeze at it. I had a look, but unfortunately I couldn't get in there because the player I wanted to drop had already played today. So that got picked up before I had a chance to get in there. So I definitely wanted him, but yeah. I think he'll do well. Like the good thing about him, I think he's going to start the rest of the season. His minutes are going to be solid. There might be ups and downs. I don't think he's going to perform this well, obviously, but he should be, thereabouts the top 100 moving forward. And again, someone who is not rostered in probably enough leagues. He is currently rostered in, just lost it for a quick second, 52% of leagues. So have a look around. If you need a big man, give you threes, give you assists from the big man position, he'll get you decent steals, solid percentages, low turnovers, just a very, not going to hurt you anywhere kind of player. All right, let's move on to another rookie. I'll throw it over to you for your thoughts on this guy, Immanuel Quickley. Cal, what are your thoughts on Quickley?
I think he's a must-add. I like his game. He's very much kind of like he's obviously points is why you would be getting him. I guess he's low on turnovers as well, but he's good for points. He's good fit for like a punt field goal build because he only shoots about that 40% from the field. But I like his game. Over the past couple of weeks, I think he's putting about 18 points together. He's one of those guys who might have a quiet night and then go off for like 25 or so. So he's worth having. He gets the 3-pointers as well. His free throws are really solid. For the season, he's shooting 90%. So he's pretty and that's not about it's over 3 attempts a game. So that's definitely affecting a team positively. So there's probably 3 or 4 categories are getting boosted, and for a waiver wire guy, that's definitely worth having.
Yeah, I think look the big hype has come around the fact that he started the last 2 games. Obviously, he's had moments of brilliance throughout the season, showing flashes. He's got high scoring potential. Had a few games with 25+ points with multiple threes. I might be a little bit lower on him than you, which is funny because I'm the one that added him. He obviously had that back-to-back game, so I was using that as a bit of a sort of test and see. He was okay. Like you say, he puts up points. Obviously, he shoots threes. On the season, he's good for free throw percentage. Missed a few recently, but that will correct. But outside of that, he's a bit empty. He doesn't give you many assists. He doesn't barely gives you any rebounds. No blocks at all. Low steals. So for that reason, I rank him a bit lower than some of these other guys. And if you need points and threes, then sure, go and grab him. I would rank him behind someone like a Gallinari, however, just because I am a bit worried with Elfrid Payton coming back, Derrick Rose coming back, that his role might be reduced a little bit. I'm thinking that Knicks are going to be buyers at the trade deadline. Whether or not I think that's the right thing to do or not is a different question, but I think they'll be looking to bring in talent. So he's a bit down the list in terms of priority for me for these guys. But yeah, definitely someone to look at. But it wouldn't surprise me if he's back to the bench soon when some of those other guys are back. Tibbs is pretty stubborn that way.
Yeah, the sample size of him and Derrick Rose hasn't been huge, like for them coming off the bench. So you're still not too sure how it will affect him, if it's going to be drastic or not. But I still got a bit of hope there. I think he's a good player. He'll get some shots in for sure.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next guy. KJ Martin Jr. So another Houston Rocket. That place is sort of changing over there in H-Town. But what are your thoughts on Martin Jr. here, man?
He's been looking good. He had that 21-point game, and he's getting defensive stats as well. So he had 15 and 10. He had a 21 and 4. And if you look at his averages over the past couple of weeks, it's, the 1.3 steals and the 1.8 blocks are very beneficial for any team, especially those blocks. Those blocks are elite in that category. And even the percentages, I mean, field goals, about 52%, and the free throws are above 70. So it's not hurting you drastically. He is actually taking a reasonably high percentage at 3.8 does affect you if you're only shooting 73. So it's probably a slight negative. But otherwise, I mean, look, 14 and 7 is his average for the past couple of weeks, which is really since he started really being brought into the lineup himself. So I think he's definitely worth adding. This Houston Rockets team, I think they've lost 17 games in a row now. So I think their direction's pretty clear. They're not going to make the playoffs. It's probably just going to be pushed for more the youth movement. So towards the playoff side of the fantasy basketball world, I think he will be pretty helpful.
Yeah, what the fuck's going on over at this G League, man? Like, I swear so many of these players have come back from the G League and just lighting the league on fire. Kevin Porter Jr., Aleksej Pokusevski, KJ Martin Jr., Moses Brown. What are they doing in the G League over in that bubble, man? Like what's happening? But I think, look, the big thing here, playing 31.5 minutes since sort of coming back from the G League. Like I said, defensive stats are there. 1.3 steals, 1.8 blocks. That's where the money is. Good percentages. I wonder what he's going to be like when Christian Wood is back playing minutes. Although, I think he can play alongside Christian Wood. I think that they're going to be heavily featuring him, Wood, Kevin Porter Jr., Jayshawn Tate, and trying to trade the rest of the team, basically. So I think those guys, those 4 players are going to be their big sort of featured players moving forward. So I think he's a strong add, especially if you need some solid percentages in field goals, some rebounds, and some steals and blocks. I think he's going to get you those sort of things. So he's definitely a strong add, I feel. Last one we'll quickly touch on, and it's from my hometown, well, not my hometown, but the team I barrack for, the Boston Celtics, and it's the Time Lord, Robert Williams. Now, he's not really a hot pickup in terms of recency compared to these other guys, except for the fact that Tristan Thompson is out due to COVID protocols. So that gives the Time Lord a good chunk of time here to prove himself worthy and to potentially win over, if not a starting role, more minutes in the Celtics rotation. And we know, based on previous videos that we've done, that this guy is a permanent beast. And if he gets the opportunity, he will play excellent fantasy basketball. What's your thoughts on Robert Williams moving forward?
Block City. He's reminding me a bit of Mitchell Robinson from the last couple seasons.
Yeah,
you bring him in, great field goal, and really, really elite in blocks. Over the past couple of weeks, he's averaging 3.5 blocks a game. So that is a huge spike. And while he's also putting up your 73% field goal pretty casually, which is a huge boost.
Huge boost, yeah.
And then just, 10 and 8 kind of, points and rebounds stats. So there's a lot of positives there. But the blocks and the field goal is one of those things that really boost any team. He's ranked 25th on Yahoo for the past couple of weeks. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's 2 weeks, but it's really 4 games based on the fact that it's been since the All-Star break. But yeah, still, like this guy, and that's in 20 minutes. 10, 8, 10, 8, 3.5 blocks, 73% field goal, like you said, 80% free throws, low turnovers, in 20 minutes. Like imagine this guy gets like 28 minutes a night. Like this dude is going to be just an absolute beast. So again, another one I think you definitely need to have on your roster. He is owned in 50% of leagues, 56% of leagues, sorry. So he's on the higher end compared to some of these other guys. So he might be taken in your league. And he has been doing this for basically the entire season. But just now with the extended run, he's going to have a bit more opportunity with Tristan Thompson out for a while. And I don't know if, maybe he doesn't give that job back once Thompson gets back and potentially there's a trade opening up at Celtics. I think he could either be traded or be the beneficiary of a trade to get more minutes. There's a bit of a push in Boston to sort of see this guy get more minutes moving forward. And I think it will happen. So I would definitely be holding on to the Time Lord if you can. All right, let's go through these players and just I'll throw it to you, Cal. Who is, in terms of your ranking, start 1 through 9. We've got 9 players here. Who is the priority to add, just in terms of total value for yourself, and how do you break it down?
I'm going out for Kevin Porter Jr. That's
Yep.
why I want it on my team. I think this will be maintained. It'll be worthwhile in the playoff scheme of things for fantasy. He'll get shots. He's going to have some downs, yes, but his up weeks could be this turning point in a playoff series. So,
who have you got second?
I got Danilo Gallinari as my number 2.
Interesting. Yep.
Just because, as I mentioned before, that they're on a 5-game winning streak, and it's really because Danilo's getting a lot of minutes. So that gives me a bit of hope that this will actually be maintained, which is the only knock I had against him beforehand, because that Atlanta team was so deep. Yeah. And I know they still have a couple injuries, which is why he is also getting a lot of minutes, but he is a very good fan. He's ranked 5th over the past couple of weeks. So
yeah, we talked about Olynyk. Yeah, we talked about Olynyk, being highly ranked. Gallinari is ranked higher by 1 spot.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, his preseason rank of 81, I thought that was too high, but with the injuries that happened with Atlanta, I guess it's looking like a good pickup. So he would be my number 2.
Yeah. Okay. Who have you got number 3?
Number 3 would have to be Immanuel Quickley.
Okay.
Might be a bit early for him, to be honest, because you went super high, but I think there's a solid role for him. He's, as I said, he's only really points, but sometimes you need points, and for a waiver wire guy, that is.
It's hard to find. It is hard to find points, especially as a category. It's not something you can really stream through off your waiver wire. So I do see the value in that. I have him a bit further down. Might even drop him in our league, so you might be able to pick him up soon. But I think I've got a few others ahead of him, just in terms of total value moving forward. Who have you got at number 4?
I've got the timekeeper, Robert Williams at number 4.
Time Lord, bro.
The Time Lord. I apologize.
Yeah, Time Lord. There you go.
To all the Celtics fans out there.
Yeah, I couldn't let that slide.
The Time Lord, Robert Williams. Just those blocks are so elite.
Yeah.
Such a carry in the field goal. So that's a huge boost in 2 categories, which is massive.
I had him as a top 3 pickup in my ranking as well. Who have you got 5th?
5th, I got Moses Brown, just to test the waters. Could go either way, but that game he had was such a standout. You can't not spin the dice on him.
Yeah. I agree. I've got him ranked very highly on my list. Going to number 6.
I have KJ Martin Jr.
Yep.
Well, once again, I feel like him and Moses Brown are pretty similar. You spin the dice with them. So you could probably mix and match either of them, whichever better fits your team. I guess, I mean, they both have risk. They both definitely have a bit of risk and great upside. So,
yeah. Okay. I like it.
Otherwise, moving into 7, I went to Satoransky. Pretty much just hoping that he's going to maintain his minutes. But I feel like that's not as guaranteed. I don't know. The Kobe White stitch, maybe this is for good, in which case Satoransky would be a great pickup. But he'd be my number 7. And number 8 would be Pokusevski, just because I'm not as high as you are on him. He's definitely a bit more of a project. But that I think that rounds it out. Or did I miss someone?
I think you missed Kelly Olynyk.
I missed Big Kelly. You have to throw Kelly up there. He'd probably be around the 2 or 3 section.
Okay, so you've got him quite high. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I agree. Pokusevski is my last. I actually don't think you should bother picking him up if you're in a standard league. So I just wanted to mention him on a podcast because I am big on him, and I've mentioned him before. So I would go something similar. I would go Kevin Porter Jr. clearly number one, and I've sort of ranked these in tiers. So I've got a tier of a top three who I think you absolutely go out, add them, drop who you have to, get these players in your side because they could win you your league. Kevin Porter Jr. is one of them. I've actually got Moses Brown at number 2. I think this guy could be legit. I think this could be like, especially if you need those categories, this could be the Hassan Whiteside or the Christian Wood kind of player that like changes your league because his statistical profile is just so elite. He doesn't need that many minutes to be relevant. I think OKC is just tanking and he's going to feature very heavily. And I just from watching him, man, he just looks like a freak athlete. So I like Moses Brown.
If he does the eye test, that's important.
Yeah, he looks so athletic, man. And then I've got Robert Williams as well. Sort of those two I could see flip-flopping. I see probably more of a path of minutes to Moses Brown than I do Robert Williams, which is why I've given him the edge. When Tristan Thompson is back, there's a bit of question marks in terms of like the trade deadline. So just drop them down a bit. My next tier is you definitely still want to add these players, but maybe a little bit more suited to if you need these statistical categories. So in this tier, I've got Gallinari. I've got Satoransky at 5. I think, like I said, I'm a bit higher on him. I think he's going to stick. I've got KJ Mutton Jr. at 6, and then probably Kelly Olynyk at 7. Those all in a bit of a group tier. Kelly Olynyk's a bit more of a well-rounded sort of player. So if you just want someone who's not going to hurt you in a few categories, you'd have him there. And then my last two, I've got Immanuel Quickley and Aleksej Pokusevski. Quickley, look, if you need, he's probably maybe a bit better than Pokusevski in terms of this list, but I just think there's some deficiencies in his game, and I think that there is enough reason for me to sort of worry that his role may not be set in stone. So for that reason, I sort of feel like he should be below some of those other guys. So I would prioritize getting the other guys before Quickley sort of there. But he is a bit of a hype guy, and he is owned in 35% league, which is more than some of these other guys moving forward. Definitely more than someone like Satoransky and Moses Brown, who are sort of 20% or lower. So there's some hot players for you guys. Let us know how you go. Let us know if you picked up any of these guys before our podcast or how they go moving forward.